3, 2, 1. Welcome to a special episode of the Unpub Podcast. We recorded just 24 hours ago, Odie, and you could not get enough of me.
I love talking to you, Kevin. It's actually my favorite thing. If we could podcast every day, all day, in a simulation, I would.
In a simulation. If we were in the Matrix, we would
be the podcasters.
It's official now. If we were in the Matrix, we would have a podcast about being in the Matrix.
Exactly.
It's just you and I sitting there. I'm just like, there goes that cat again.
Which pill did you take this morning? Blue again? Me too.
I took all of them.
I took the purple
Who's
pill.
your Morpheus? And why is he a giant frog? Anyway, this is the first time we've ever done this, and I'm really happy we did this, actually.
First time for everything.
Yeah. It feels like the first time we're demonetized.
Running up that hill. Oh, sorry.
That's right. And I love that our running joke for songs is running up that hill.
Until Stranger Things is over, and then we'll move on.
All right, then we'll find a new one. So you went and saw Eddington earlier this week.
Yeah.
And you had some thoughts.
Yeah, so I will say this, and I want to say this up front because I'm going to be honest. I'm going to own I'm going to call it a mistake. I went into this movie under the impression that it was very politically driven, and so I put on my rose-colored political glasses that I bought.
I put on my red, white, and blue glasses.
Red, white, and blue.
And the movie was 3D. It was 3D.
It was great. There's an elephant on one side and a donkey on the other, so it's very.
And they kept fighting.
Yeah, and I didn't like the movie Eddington because I was too focused on the political side of it. And then you went and saw it because you were like, huh, interesting. And then you were like, I don't know, man. I think this movie's pretty good. And I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to go see it again. So I saw it again last night.
So as you were talking about this, and this is what prompted me to go see it because, this isn't like it's a small pat on my back, but at the same time.
Here we go, everybody.
It's small.
Here we go.
All right. You know what? I am the superior cinema goer. No. So when you were talking about it, I'm like, well, Ari Aster is, and I just, we've been talking about this since because it is a really good movie. Like, first off, okay, before we get into it, garbage, bad, fun, good, or great?
What's yours first?
Good.
Good?
I think it's good. Yes.
I am going to, are you ready for me to surprise you?
Yeah. Yeah, hit
great.
me. Oh, good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I don't think it's great, but that's also because I have a feeling that there were choices that Ari Aster made that tempered the film a little bit, and when we get into this, you'll see we've been talking about this. There are a couple blink and you miss it moments that I think
definitely
are a disservice to other audience members, not myself.
Well, they were a disservice to me
because of
too,
that.
the first time.
Because of that, I feel like it gets lost on some of the intended audience of the film,
Absolutely.
which is everybody.
Everybody.
And that, to me, being a disservice to the film itself, I think it's very good. I have other Ari Aster films to compare it to. You don't yet.
No, so I thought he directed Death of the Unicorn. He was just a producer.
Okay.
So I fucked that up.
Yeah, so you saw Death of a Unicorn.
Totally different tone, though. That's like a comedy, dark comedy.
Way
it's
different.
Totally different.
Yeah. I've seen Midsummer, Hereditary, and Beau is Afraid, which are the other Ari Aster films that are written and directed. But as you were talking about it, I was just like, this director is much more culturally nuanced, and I don't feel like he would write a politically driven movie. There is a driving force in the movie, or rather, I should say, there is a current of politic that runs through the movie, but that is just part of the setting itself.
Definitely. And on a second watch, I definitely got a lot more out of it. And going in with a gummy in my system and, already thinking, oh, I don't like this movie. The reason I call it great, and we were talking just before we recorded, and I didn't want to give too much away of how I thought. There was a couple of things I still had issues with, but I actually walked away from the second viewing really loving this movie a lot more than I ever thought I would. I was convinced after I watched it the first time that this was going to be one of the worst movies of the year for me. I did not like it. It was just something that I was like, I don't like what these characters did. I think it looks good, but overall I was like, no. And then I watched out of it the second time last night at like 1:15 in the morning, and I literally sat in my car for about 5 minutes and was just like, huh.
Yeah. And it's a film that makes you think. And so we described it a little bit on the episode that's coming out this week. We're going to release this at the same time. This is episode 107B. I don't know what the fuck we're going to call it, but do you mind if I run through the plot?
I was going to actually say, you should steer the ship on this one.
Yeah.
Because I think you have a way. Yeah, you should steer the ship.
Okay.
I lost my whole thought.
So Ari Aster is actually from New Mexico. Like he was in New Mexico in 2020.
Did you see any of his interviews about this? Because I watched them.
I did
last
this
night.
morning.
I watched them last night. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. So he was in New Mexico in 2020, and he wrote this film conveying the sense of like, oh, something's going to happen. And it doesn't feel like it's going to be great. And he wanted to take that and transpose that into the film. And he's been sort of like writing and doctoring this ever since. It took, about 5 years to get it to this point. Really, it just premiered at, Cannes Film Festival earlier this year, right?
Yeah, I believe it was Cannes. One of them. Sundance, Cannes.
Yeah, like it's been making the rounds, and this is its theatrical release. But he wrote a movie, so the surface plot of the film is that we have an everyday American sheriff named Joe Cross, and he is frustrated with just about everything in his life, but mostly it's that he has a lack of control. He doesn't have control in his house, where his mother-in-law is living with him and his wife, who has trouble being touched. He wants to have kids. She apparently doesn't. He has conflict with the mayor of the town, who he believes to be just a governmental puppet controlled by the governor.
And to some extent,
he's right.
Is.
Yeah. But so he has an issue with that. He's not necessarily happy with where he is in his position. He's constantly spoken down to by the people around him. He's not necessarily appreciated. You find out later that there have been issues with the law enforcement in that town. The guys in the county next, like right over from him, don't necessarily respect him either. Yeah. Which is like Pueblo, right? They keep saying this is Pueblo, and like that's the Native American land. And so there's these Native American sheriffs who, in the very beginning, you see like don't respect him either. And so he's going about this like world where it seemingly everything is just in conflict with him, including the fact that he is asthmatic and has trouble breathing already, and then this mask mandate has just gone into place. And so a lot of this ends up feeling very real very quickly. At the same time, we have a subplot of two young boys attempting to prove their affection for a female character in the movie by way of performative activism. And all of these plots intertwine, combined with the siloing and misinformation effect that happens in our very real world that we live in now. And they create a giant... I would say the best description I've seen is like a powder keg, right? So that it all creates a giant powder keg, and then at the peak of the movie, it all blows up. And it's nothing but like kind of like action from that point on.
It's very interesting
right?
action too. It's a lot of chasing action. And
it turns into chasing, fleeing action movie until it finds its inevitable resolution, which you learn at the end of the film was prefaced in the very first scene.
Yeah, and so one of the things
spoilers.
I think this is one of those you can't really talk about this movie without spoiling it. I mean, you can talk about
that's
surface
as much
level
as we
stuff.
can talk about it right
there.
Yeah,
like you can talk about surface, like all the performances are great. All of the shots look incredible. The directing, I mean, the first time I watched it, I thought the directing was phenomenal. This time, it's even more phenomenal.
Did you know the budget on this was like roughly $25 million?
Oh, it makes total sense. Like,
it's so low budget.
This
like,
looks
it's
like
nothing.
a movie that they went to a town in an area that looked like New Mexico. I don't know if it was New Mexico, but they went to like a deserty town, and it looks like this looks. And this isn't me like patting myself on the back for my skills, but this looks like the kind of movie that if I took my cinema camera and like you gave me a couple days to like,
you could film it.
I could film something that looks like this, like not quality, like, but like this looks.
You're as good as Ari Aster. That's what you're saying.
Well,
you and Ari Aster, same level.
Well, no, he wasn't behind the camera. No. But I do like that this, and I think this is one of the biggest benefits to this movie is that it not only looks real, it feels real.
Agreed.
And that's about all you can say without getting into spoilers.
Yeah, so spoilers. Like overall, what? So yesterday, you really focused on the political conflict between two of the characters who are actually parallels to each other. What changed in your perspective? I'd rather have you share that first, and then I'd like to share my takeaways.
Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, Darius Kanji is the cinematographer. He did 7.
Yep.
And Mickey 17. Those are like the two that
which are both great.
Both look fantastic. To answer your question, so originally when I went into this, I was like, oh, Pedro Pascal is the left, Joe Cross is the right, which is hilarious because on the second watch through, when they actually have their standoff in the street, Pedro Pascal's on the right and Joe Cross is on the left, and that there was enough for me to be like, I'm a fucking idiot.
Very intentional.
Yeah, very intentional in a lot of ways, and everything in this is intentional. And I think my biggest problem the first time through is that I felt like Pedro Pascal's character didn't get enough development before he was removed from the plot. And on this watch through, I realized that subtlety is the key to this movie. There's so many subtle things. There's so many, like, not necessarily blink and you miss it, but there's so many little extra words, extra sentences, extra actions, extra facial expressions, extra movements that really highlight what the character's true motivation and what they truly look like. And so on the second watch through with Pedro Pascal, I was like, oh, he's not perfect, but he's definitely a better person than Joe. And I like that there's this whole point where Joe Cross is like, I'm a better human than you. And you're not, but that doesn't mean that Pedro Pascal is perfect, but he is still better than Joe Cross because he's not going out murdering people and losing his shit.
Yeah. Well, he says that, but at the same time, he is the person who's like totally abusing everybody in the town in order to push through this like data farm.
Because he's working for the governor. Because the governor, and I missed this the first time, the governor is trying to get to D.C., and in my head I was like, well, obviously a mayor like is going to work for the governor because that's how it works. But then I realized with like things like the pocket watch and the way they're like in the Skype call that they have where he's like, can you shut this bitch up because this lady's like combating his like what he wants to do. Yep. Like all those little moments, I was like, oh, maybe there is more here. Like maybe.
Well, his goal. He's avaricious. He's egotistical. He wants to be the next. He thinks he's the next in line, and that's what that pocket watch. Hey, it's your time. I'm eternally grateful.
But it was
when
his
I
time,
move
Kevin.
up, you're moving up.
It was his time in a different way.
It was
to get shot.
No, you're 100% right on that. I think that was phenomenal. So there are two ways that Joe Cross is parallel in this film. First off, he represents the journey of a lost American man looking for control in a world that is constantly saying everything about him is wrong. You're not wearing your mask when you're supposed to. You're not. You're a white guy, and we're trying to get rid of whiteness. And these are overt lines in the film, right?
Yeah.
Like you're a cop, and all cops suck.
Pig roast
so
is
he's
in
all
this
of
a
these.
lot.
And really, in a lot of ways, like everything around him is just kind of it's closing in and getting like, and the world keeps getting louder and louder. And Ari Aster does a really good job of making it louder and louder too. And I'll talk about that more in a bit. But he's also a parallel to Pedro Pascal's character in that they both exist in broken families. They're both not dealing with the actual issues of those broken families and trying to find their sense of like power, control, self-worth, identity, and just overall willpower anywhere else in the world, including and most obviously their jobs.
Well, that's the cool thing too, is I liked, again, this time around, that I think that there is an element of toxic masculinity. I'm going to put a pin in that for now because I want to come back to it. Because I think it's very subtle, and maybe it's not toxic masculinity, but I think there is some.
No, there is, but it might not be Joe. I think it's more that Tooley guy, the sheriff, the deputy Tooley, for sure.
Yeah, Guy Tooley. I think that there is. I like that the two main characters hide behind something. Joe hides behind the badge for power, and that's why he thinks people should respect him, and that's why he thinks he should have authority. When he goes to the grocery store, he's like, don't kick this man out because he doesn't have a mask, and everyone's like, well, you have to, and he's like, well, I'm the law, and they're like, well, this actually is above you, and he's like, but I'm the law, and then you have Ted, the mayor, who's like, well, I'm the mayor, so I'm in charge of everything, but he even has to bend his power to people around him that aren't even above him, because that's what being a public servant really is, and he doesn't understand that aspect, because both of these men are just at the top of what they think is their power chain, and they're really not. And that was the through line through this watch through that really made me go, oh.
Yeah, and like the other parallel that I really like are Brian is not paralleled with the mayor's son. He's like a random white kid, like same problem, like he's just like so his issue is that he doesn't feel like he has power or control or value. He's looking for a place to be like appreciated, valued the entire film. And then the person that he parallels is actually Michael, the deputy, who is looking for a place where he is valued. He's constantly trying. He's like, oh, wait, I could be sergeant? Oh, I'd love to be captain.
I could be sheriff?
I'm younger.
Yeah.
My dad was younger than I was when he was made captain. Like he's looking for that validation. Both of them are looking for it. And both of them have a relationship to, her name's like Meg or something. I forget her name.
She's not
or
that
Emily
important.
Or whatever. But, well, she is.
But I mean,
She's a pivotal character in that Michael did kind of date her. It's like unconfirmed. It remains unconfirmed whether or not they dated or whatever. And it might have even been dubious because Michael's a little bit older and she's 18.
18 or 19, but like he's easily in his mid-20s probably.
And he doesn't know how old she is,
Which is even worse. Or he
like,
does know and doesn't want to say.
Yeah, but but then Brian has a crush on her, and the mayor's son actually swoops in and is a better talker than he is and presents himself better. And so he ends up kind of earning her affection. And then these two characters that mirror each other throughout the film, Michael and Brian, end up going further and further away from each other on the political spectrum. And one of the things that I really like is Brian is looking to get closer and closer. And as the film progresses, Michael is looking to distance himself more and more from the conflict, from especially the political conflict in the setting of the film.
Definitely. I think another aspect of this movie that makes it a very interesting watch is not almost, every character, even some of the background characters like the homeless man, they feel like they think they are the main character. Everybody thinks that this is their story, and that is a very interesting narrative thread. And because Ari Aster did a really good job of writing a lot of these characters, even the background ones that don't have a lot to do or have a lot of lines, like the police officer that is from the reservation that's in, kind of knows what's going on but isn't 100%
Officer Butterfly
sure.
Jimenez.
Yeah, even he kind of thinks that he's the main character, because there's a moment where he has a main character moment where he runs out with the realization and drives off, and it's this is his moment, but you don't really see it from his perspective, but that's what he thinks he's doing. And Brian at the end, he has his main character moment, and all of that is so interestingly woven throughout, because there's even a character, one of the people that the mayor is meeting with that's at the bar when it's closed down, and he's meeting with these two city council members. One of those council members even kind of has a moment where he thinks he's the main character because he's staring at Joe Cross when he's getting kicked out of a party, and he's he's smug about it and everything,
Got you.
Every character, and this is what I've heard about Midsommar. I'm probably going to watch that when we're done recording now. I've heard that one of the things that Ari Aster really is good at is character writing and making sure that every character feels like they have a place. And, in movies where side characters pop up and disappear, and sometimes they play a part and sometimes they don't, it was nice that even the homeless guy, really played a pivotal part in this, even though you don't think he's going to.
Well, the homeless guy is so interesting piece of this, and this is what I really like about Ari Aster. The first thing we see is a man disconnected with his own reality. You see him arguing with himself and sometimes rhyming. You don't know who he's talking to.
Yeah.
Like, if you're listening to what he's saying, you're trying to be like, all right, is he yelling at, like, the establishment? Is there an actual person that he's angry with? Because, like, sometimes he's issuing threats. He's like, I'll strangle you. Like, he's like, I'll poison you. Like, and you're like, what is he mad at? Like, and the point isn't to figure it out. The point is that this is a man disconnected from reality, completely forgotten about. And then later in the movie, he's used as a political piece when the mayor's son posts the video of Joe Cross, like, taking care of him in the bar. And it's because he broke in and started trying to fight everybody. But all the public sees is Joe Cross abusing a citizen.
Yeah.
But then when that very same homeless man is at the protest, who was literally just used the night before to, like, demerit Joe Cross, to shame him, he's, like, completely forgotten. Like, no one's paying attention to him.
They
all
all want him to leave. They're frightened by him.
He just wanders off again. And eventually, and so, like, I'll build up to the middle of the film, but, like, what's happening the entire time, and what I really loved about this, and my first initial thought that I shared with you, and I love how Ari Aster did this. There is not a moment of, like, real silence at any point in the beginning of the film. Every single scene has someone reading, or they're playing a video in the background, or they're on their phone, or, like, there's something happening where a piece of information about what they believe is wrong with the world is just playing or idling or being spoken, or, like, there's very few moments where there's not, like, something happening, and it's white noise, and it keeps building and building and building until eventually, and very artistically, the white noise peaks with Pedro Pascal's character cranking the volume on Katy Perry's Firework.
Yeah, great choice.
And this is what's really great, is in this moment, this is the moment where Joe Cross finally, like, boils over. He's like, he's had it, right? And he's yelling, shut the music off, and you can barely hear him over the people drowning him out with the music in the background because they believe that they're in the right. And then he gets slapped in the face by Pedro Pascal. Twice. And what's really great about that moment is everything up to that moment has been louder, 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 louder. And then as he's walking away, the music doesn't turn down. You just see him walking away and the music gets quieter in the background. And then all of a sudden we have this quiet. And he's snapped, and it's very apparent, like, especially the way that it's presented artistically. He's snapped, but that snapping was an implosion, not an explosion. Like, he was explosive when he yelled, and then he gets slapped and he implodes. He turns inward, he becomes self-destructive, and then that moves its way outward. The first person he comes across is the homeless person who's broken back into the same bar. And he just walks in and he's staring at him. And you can really see, like, the pain and the confusion on his face. And then he just shoots him 3 times.
Yeah.
And for the first moment in the entire film, we get utter silence. And then all of a sudden we just get, like, the sound effects of him wrapping up the body and disposing it and sending it downstream. And there's this, like, one brief little, it's almost like, it's like darkly euphoric moment of actual, like, environmental, like, hum in the background. Like, it's kind of peaceful. And then he coughs because he's got COVID. And it was the best way to usher in the next act of the film.
I love that. Again, it's kind of a subtlety, but I like that Joe Cross is definitely not a full believer on COVID because he has a couple lines.
He has, like, the one line. He has like, one line. He's like, well, it's not real.
Well, because he has 2 lines. One's about the BLM protest and one's about COVID, and he goes,
"Yep,
that's not COVID's not an issue here." And that's that's the way that people back then in 2020 with COVID would deny it. They wouldn't flat out be like, well, COVID isn't real. They'd be like, well, it's just not here, which is the same thing because it's everywhere, right? Like, and he also did the same thing with BLM when he's with his sheriff deputies at one point. They're like, what do we do? What do we do? Like in Minneapolis, he's like, well, they're not here, so it's not our problem. And then it is his problem because it is there. He just is so blind, he doesn't see it, or he's so ignorant to that being in his town. Because there is an element to this movie that I definitely missed the first time, and I'm curious what you think of it. This story takes place at the end of May in 2020, which means that in real life, that's only about 2 months of COVID time, roughly, maybe 3 if you're stretching it. But COVID didn't
shutdown,
because COVID didn't really become, I don't want to say like popular, but like it was March of 2020, and I know that because I moved in April of 2020, and it was the middle, and COVID was already a thing
of shutdown.
Yeah. And so
everything shut down in March. So yeah, it's been about 2 months.
It's been about 2 months in this story. So it makes you wonder, okay, 6 months ago, the town would have been completely normal, right? So what was Joe's Cross life?
Whatever normal is for that town.
So what was normal in this town? What was a normal day of being a sheriff for him? You know, what was this life like before? Because if you'd set this in 2021, where COVID had been around for a year, I think that dilutes the effect of COVID. Because when it's only been around for like a month or two and you have no idea, and I'm sure everybody remembers, like you didn't know how long it was going to go. You didn't know how long it was going to be around. You didn't know what was going on, like if there was going to be a cure, a vaccine, what was up, right? And I think that is really shown in a really nice light, because you see some people in this movie in the background, whether it be at like like the grocery store, or like in the street, or at protests, or like in restaurants that you see. And some of them look like they're just living a normal life. They have their mask on. They're just like, this is life now. And then you have the other people that you very clearly, like, they're pulling their masks down. They don't want to wear them. And like, it's all in the background, but it's all there to show you that the town itself also has its own kind of character. And I like that was kind of the case for it this time around, is that it is like, this has only been around for 2 months. So what was this like before? Was Joe always like this? Was he always fucking stupid and crazy?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think when we meet him in the beginning, no, he wasn't. Like, we're meeting him at the pivotal moment where he sets on this, what is relatively like an increasingly libertarian path, right? Which, and once again, the political veneer is over this movie. So like, that's what's happening. But it really, at the end of the day, it's a movie about people who are existing in such different versions of reality that all of them are convinced they're correct. All of them really actually do want to do something good in the world. And all of them are completely misguided, because instead of connecting with each other, they just keep like, and you see it at multiple points throughout the movie, people just like something bad will happen, and instead of like another character interaction, you just see them pick up their phone and then go on Instagram or go on a news site and like just start scrolling. And what's really good about, there's a couple like darkly comical moments that involve social media in this film. I think the best one that highlights how it's used is the commercial that Pedro Pascal does when he's getting reelected.
That felt too real.
It's so cringy, where he's like, we didn't know where my wife went, but this town was here for us. And then like midway through the commercial, he's like playing piano in some random intersection and like smiling at the sky like a maniac. And you're like, this can't, no.
He's a politician through and through, and I didn't see that the
100%.
first time. The first time I saw more of a dad who like was like upset or like worried, but the second time I was like, oh, no, this is a politician that's just trying to cover his tracks.
That's
like,
it.
And here's the thing. I will say this, and I'm not afraid to say this. I still don't think that the balance between Joe and Ted is done super well, because I do think at the end of the movie, what Joe does is way worse than anything we see Ted do, or anything that Ted realistically could have done. Because
that's the point.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, and that's what really kind of bothered me, and now it bothers me in a good way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But like, even if the reason that Ted's wife left was something to do with Ted, right? Then like, that still makes him a bad person, but that's still not as bad as murdering a bunch of people. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so like to tie to that point, Joe Cross is married to, so Joaquin Phoenix's character is married to what's her name? Lou. Yeah, Lou Ann or whatever her name. And so Lou,
played by Emma Stone,
very well, by the way, for such a small and relatively thankless role for her.
Different for her too, I think.
Yeah, he's married to her. like we mentioned, her mom lives with them, and she is a huge conspiracy theorist. Like, her introduction is her saying, like, literally putting a laptop in Lou's lap and saying, read this.
They knew about
read
COVID in
loud.
2019. They used the word coronavirus, and you're just like, oh, Jesus.
They're like, read about it. Why? She's like, makes you think, huh? And, like, you can actually see when Joe first comes home, like, the mom has fallen asleep to conspiracy theories, and then Lou has fallen asleep watching this Vernon Jackson Green guy or whatever, right? Like played by Austin Butler. And he's talking about how like 56 is a number that's woven through all. He's like the farthest of far conspiracy theorists, right? And she let me work this out, right? Joe is convinced that she was sexually assaulted by the mayor.
Oh, she was raped.
A long time ago. But it's because they didn't talk. Yeah, but it's because they didn't talk about it. And instead of talking, like, he does get a chance to try and ask her about it, and it's really sad because she falls asleep. And once again, Ari Aster, he weaves family trauma through everything. So, like, her falling asleep because she's exhausted is not indicative of her not wanting to pay attention to it. But they've never addressed the fact that the picture hanging in the center of the house, Joe's father-in-law, who was the previous sheriff, was her abuser. Right? Yeah. And so Joe never gets the chance to understand that. He thinks that Pedro Pascal's character did it. She goes on to deny it on Facebook after he
comes out and says
this whole thing.
He basically has a mini town hall for while he's running, and he's like, listen, the mayor did this to my wife. And then at the end of it, he's like, let's call it what it is. And then he says, great. And it's like, wow, okay, how is this going to play out? Not well for him.
No. And then so what ends up happening, and another thing, like, here's the subtlety. Ari Aster puts in the very beginning of the film that Joe is a really good shot. And then we see in the scene where he murders Pedro Pascal, it's not a big, huge, crazy thing. Like, he's off in the distance. It's during the nighttime. You just see a muzzle flash. And I loved the sound. Like, this is such a weird thing to say, but, like, for such a dark moment, there's so many beautiful moments of cinema happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, he shoots. He hits Pedro Pascal right through the chest as he's speaking to his son. His son comes out. He misses, like, the first shot on the son and then hits the son. But each time you just see the muzzle flare and then you hear the bullet as it hits the person. It's really, really, and then you hear the shot behind it, like it just so well done. And then he steps on a bullet casing and can't find it, but leaves anyway, And that gets us into, like, the real second act, which you previously, like, when you said that these guys show up and they're like, what did you say? You said like they were like a liberal task force or something.
What I didn't understand about this the first time, and you can explain, like, the moments that lead up to it, but there's a moment where you just see a private plane and it's full of people in black tactical gear. They have some BLM, like, I guess it'd be considered propaganda for them because they're clearly not actually fighting for Black Lives Matter. They're using it as a cover.
Yeah, they have all of the propaganda that Alex Jones raged about in 2020.
Exactly. They're cosplaying to make,
Antifa.
For the rage. Exactly. And so you got a hint. There was a shootout at a police station early on in the film that you see, like, a clip of where, like, a group of armed people are shooting at police officers at a police station, right? And they're up on a building. Yep. And then you see that same group is on the airplane and they're going to Eddington. And I didn't really understand. I was like, okay, so this group of guys just show up in Eddington and they just start harassing Joe Cross. Like, I was very confused. But then you so graciously pointed out, and I also kind of still missed this on my second watch through, that they work for the real villain of the film.
Yes. So these guys are private mercs. And the entire film, everybody going back to, and this is one thing that I really like, phones are treated as weapons in this film. They are acts of overt and covert violence, either filming someone and using it against them out of context, or going on to find the piece of misinformation that leads to violence. Like, the phones themselves are part of the villainy, but it's because they represent the greater overarching villain of the film, who we learn about in the first shot, because they show in the film, hey, there's a data center that's coming. Big tech is the villain of the film. It's a shadow that looms over the entire thing. Everybody has it in their hand at every moment of the film. Everybody's constantly engaging with it. And it's alluded to that, and I love the name. It's like Solid Gold Magikarp is the name of
because it's a rare Pokemon card.
It's a rare Pokemon card.
I'm like, why are we naming this after a Pokemon?
Is the tech company that wants to open up this data center, and you hear a couple people, they're like, we're already in a drought, and Pedro Pascal's like, we're always in a drought. Like, just let them open up here. But like, the point is that they're gonna come in, they're gonna use the town for all it's worth, and that's all they want. And so what ends up happening is, as the town's devolving into chaos, this deal is still looming over the town. It never goes away. And then these mercs show up dressed in all black with, signage, and they're very coordinated, and their drone footage of like, the big climax of the film, which we can break down in a second. But like, they're filming everything very intentionally. They're creating a narrative of their own, which is the other underlying theme of the film. When you live in your own version of reality, you adhere to the narrative that gives you a sense of control, and that's what everyone's doing the entire time, right? Everyone's adhering to the narrative that gives them the greatest sense of control, belonging, placement, willpower, like all of these things that people want. They're seeking it through social media rather than their actual community.
Yeah. And I also think that there's that element where, again, each of the characters kind of hide behind whatever power they can grasp onto.
Yes.
And you even see that with the deputies. You have one guy, his name is Guy.
Guy Tooley.
Who is kind of the opposite of Michael, the other deputy. Because
Michael Cook.
Thank you.
I got you.
Guy, he sees the protests, and he's like, oh, shit. He goes to the most extreme. He's like, this is going to happen here. He even says at one point, he's like, well, I didn't even see Michael like that until the protest. And it's like, yep, you were racist all along, you motherfucker.
Yeah,
and then
100%.
He's the one that's like in full riot gear with a riot shield, while everybody else is just in like regular vests with no plates in them. He is going to the most extreme version of like those kind of people that see an issue across the country and go, well, this is going to be at my doorstep, so I might as well get ahead of it. And their version of getting 100%. Ahead of it is create more violence. And yes. I do love, and this is probably the perfect time to talk about it, I do love the like explosive like kickoff to the third act where it's literally an explosion, because I feel like his end is very justified.
Well, what was really good about all of that is you have these two deputies on seemingly opposing sides, not realizing that they're actually on the same side, and the real enemy has very fittingly and metaphorically gagged one of them, and then when the other one steps out to engage, gets blown up. Like, both of them just get blown up by shrapnel. These mercs set a trap for the other two sheriffs to show up, and then what happens is, from the explosion, there's like, it's funny, there's like this like Rube Goldberg like no peace flame that lights. It's very, this moment felt very Batman.
It did feel very Batman.
Yeah,
and I do like that. And I think that's the thing with everybody that dies in this, because Guy gets blown up and you just see his body like split into three pieces. Because you see his hand,
his arm.
You see part of his torso, and then you do see his legs go flying in a different direction during the explosion.
Yeah.
Michael just gets shrapnel. He gets some scarring, but he ultimately survives. But like, there's a taxi driver that when Joe at one point walks by him, he's alive. He comes back, he's shot in the head. There's the police officer gets mowed down by machine gun fire and then shot in the head. Everybody like that you met, because everybody except for the taxi driver you've met at some point, when they die, it's so quick. It reminds me of, did you ever see the movie Hell or High Water?
Yes.
So there's a really good, and spoilers for this movie that came out like 10 years ago, but Jeff Bridges throughout the entire movie has a partner with him while they're tracking the brothers, played by Chris Pine and another guy. And this partner has been with him the entire fucking movie. They've been bantering, they've been talking, they've been chatting. And his death is so, like, they're behind a car, his partner pops up, he's like, he's up on the boom, he's dead. And there's no mourning, there's no build. And I'm like, I love when a character just dies, because that's so much more how it would happen. You don't get these big Hollywood end moments. And I think that was really well done in this movie, that none of the deaths, none of the murders, none of it is dwelled on or hung on to. It happens, and then we're immediately moving on.
Oh, yeah, big time. Well, and you know what's... So Ari Aster has a moment in all of his films where it becomes very surreal.
Yeah.
And this was that moment where all of a sudden you're like, wait, like as a viewer, when, you know, Michael's first broken out of the prison cell, I'm like, wait, what the fuck is going on?
I was
like,
what the hell?
I had no idea. Yeah, you're just as confused as everyone else in the film. And then there's this explosion, and then all of a sudden, Joe is running for his life from
I love that.
What he thinks he had been fearing this whole time, but doesn't recognize is, you know, just big tech sending in mercs. And as he's running away, he goes home. The first thing he's confronted with is the vision of his wife who left him, seemingly come back to pack her bags, which you believe because the mom's yelling that she thinks they were there earlier in the day and came and took their stuff. But it's really the mom saying, I need to leave. Like, I have to get away from this. I have to run away. This is traumatic. This is stressful. I can't handle this. And then he runs back outside. Taxi driver's dead. He gets, like, he runs away because they're still trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, there's this, like, and it seems like, I think there's, like, two, right? There's, like, two guys who are hunting him down.
It has to be two because he kills one and then the guy kills the other at the end. So I think
Yeah.
there's at least two.
And
But there was, like,
get
5 on the plane, so...
Yeah, we get the most grounded, silly action sequence I think I've ever seen in, like, a movie like this, where, like, it's kind of thriller, it's kind of actiony, but, like, you can tell
Looney Tunes because
he hasn't been trained for this.
Yeah.
Well, he also, like, you can tell, like, Joe's not prepared
Well, he also
for
has
this
COVID,
at all.
so he can't
Yeah.
breathe very well, and he's
Oh,
also
true,
asthmatic.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like...
and the COVID has been getting worse and worse throughout this act.
Yeah.
And then he finally, and this is like, this is the moment where it gets like really surreal and like where you're like, okay, this is definitely a movie. I
Yeah.
can appreciate it for what
I know
it is.
exactly what you're about to say.
He gets a giant belt-fed machine gun, like a like a huge caliber machine gun, and just comes out and starts lighting up the town.
He's just shooting randomly. And he ends up shooting the leg off of another police officer who then gets shot in the head by the bad guys.
And he's paranoid, right? And
Yeah,
like,
he's super paranoid.
And he accidentally clips Officer Butterfly Jimenez, who did figure out that he had murdered Pedro Pascal. Like, he put 2 and 2 together. He was wait, long-range rifle.
Same
Joe's a really good shot. Look at the target above his desk. Look at the like, he had the motive. He was running against him for mayor. He killed him. And that's when, you know, so like when he gets accidentally shot by Joe, you then, like, I'm like, oh, shit, what's going to happen here? And then he's immediately shot in the head by one of the mercs. Like, whether by a stray or whatever, like, he's just
I think it was
gone.
a stray.
Yeah. So then Joe finally, like, he gets himself to, like, the center of town. By the way, worst place to tactically be. I don't know, like, if anybody knows
wide
anything.
open.
Yeah, like, he
making me paranoid, dude.
Yeah, I'm paranoid, but I'm going to go to the center of town. We see a figure run behind a red truck that we find out later is Brian.
I knew it was him. Like, the first time I watched it, I was like, it's obviously the kid.
And what I love about this scene is Joe is finally faced with, like, the real villain who just overpowers him pretty easily. Like, this merc shows up. Joe can't even reload his weapon. He goes to, like, act that like it's a bat for a second, like this AR. And then he gets stabbed in the head of all places.
Yeah. Like knife down through the skull.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Brian emerges from this vehicle, surprising the merc, who's not prepared for this whatsoever, with 2 weapons, his pistol and a phone. And he films himself shooting this mercenary, becoming the hero.
I saved you, Sheriff. I saved you, as he's laying there with a knife in his fucking head.
And what's crazy is, like, when he first says, I saved you, and he runs up and, like, we get, like, that sequence, I'm like, what did you save? Like, this is grim, man. Then we get the shot from the phone, which, like, brings some levity to it. It's like first his tragedy, then his farce. Like, then we get the shot from the phone of him going, I saved you. And, like, Joe's just brain dead on the ground with a knife in his head. You're like, dude, you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And we move into, like, the final scenes of the film, which I think... chef's kiss on this. Ari Aster wrapped this up in the perfect way possible. The big tech solid gold Magikarp gets their deal. freaking Joe gets what he wants. He's mayor, but he has no control physically over his life anymore, right? And then the like quote unquote winners of the film are Brian, who becomes like a right-wing savior on social media.
I originally
starts
compared
hosting
him,
a podcast.
I originally compared him to Kyle Rittenhouse, and I realized on the second watch that was an entirely. I should never fucking said that because it's not even close.
No, it's
not really.
But
I just went there because he killed somebody and got famous, but realistically, not the same at all.
No, it just shows that like this social media wanted that narrative too. So he gets elevated by that. He becomes happy, finds his wife, yada yada. Vernon and Lou are off and they're going to have a child, right? Because like, and that's actually kind of like the dark part of the ending is like he's talking about Christianity and he's forming his cult. They're getting bigger. He's holding meetings and he's using some of her art that we see earlier in the film, the snake with the sword through the throat, to help support his imagery, his vision, his cult itself. But by the way, real quick, what do you think about Austin Butler in this film?
For one, phenomenal performance, but I love his character because, again, another one of those, I think I'm the main character, the story is about me kind of person, and he very clearly is lying about everything, but he believes it, you know, because his whole story is, I was captured as a kid, and I was released in the woods, and we were hunted, and I was the only one that survives, and Joe's like, you were the only one that survived? And he's like, I know, you must think that I'm lying because that can't possibly be true, and Joe's like, yeah, that can't possibly be true. But, like, Austin Butler's character believes that everything that happened to him happened because he had 5 years of experimental therapy to unlock memories and stuff. And, like, I've met people like that have literally said things like, oh, when I was a kid, I was da-da-da-da. And I'm like, no, dude. No, you weren't. Like, I get you want attention, and that's all it is. It's attention. And that's what, like, I think one of the through lines in this movie is the mayor wants attention, Joe wants attention, Luke, like, everybody kind of wants attention in their own way.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about this movie is, and I've said this to you, like, people say things in this movie that are they become such garbled nonsense that even you as a viewer, you're like, dude, what is this bullshit?
Yeah.
You know, like, and especially Vernon's character, he's like, yeah, they released us into the wild. And the mom is like, why would they release you into the wild if they wanted to kill you? He's like, they were going to hunt us. And I was the only one who got away. And like, you know, you can see Joey's like, you were the only one who got away? Like, and it's like, you can see the disbelief, but then there's 3 other people there, this random couple and Lou, who are like, oh yeah, no, we believe this.
Yeah, because they want to believe whatever's going to make their life the easiest, their life the safest. And everybody in this movie is kind of chasing that. Lou is looking for somebody that, you know, doesn't remind her of her abuser, really. And I like the relationship between her and Joe because Joe clearly cares for her, but he is so misguided and blinded by thinking that, 1, her abuser is somebody it's not, the mayor, and 2, I never got the impression that he really listens to her, that he really, because like one of the biggest parts early on is that when he decides to run for mayor, it pisses her off because she's like, now everyone's going to be coming here for attention. I don't want to be in the spotlight. And clearly she's somebody that you would know, like, obviously she doesn't want to be in the spotlight. Like, that's very obvious from the start. So like, though his intentions are in his mind always good and pure, they're almost always the opposite in execution for the people around him.
Well, and then at the end, she is in the spotlight, which is funny.
Yeah.
But I also like, so what's really great about the ending of this is first they show Brian and they show that he's become a right-wing savior. Then they show from Joe's perspective, actually. So we see how he's being wheeled around, like from like POV perspective. We see how he's being wheeled around, how little control he has. You don't see his hands at any point. You just see the images of the world as he's watching these things unfold. And Lou's mom is talking about how great this data farm deal is going to be and how Joe, who now is the mayor, is so proud of everybody, and he can barely talk. Like he's almost nonverbal completely. I think he is nonverbal completely, right? Like
he's never really
he's paralyzed.
We don't know. Yeah.
Well, he becomes a metaphor for a literal political puppet. Like all of his beliefs and desire for control have brought him to this point where he is now literally puppeted by the woman who is saying, hey, this is going to be great for all of us. And she spent the entire movie being an off the fucking deep end conspiracy theorist. And then you see, like, even at the end of the film, she's filming herself giving him a haircut, talking about conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so brilliant. Like, even like at the very end of the film, we're getting from Ari Aster, it's like, no, this was the point the whole time.
Well, another thing,
the enemy the whole time was the phone, and it was the big tech company, and it was right in your fucking face, guys.
I also like that the nurse that takes care of him slaps him. That was a
good
my God.
Good little. And then apologizes.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that we get is he crawls into bed with Lou's mom.
That's so funny.
And they are sleeping in the same bed as Joe, who finally got the family he wanted.
In a way, yeah.
But like in an Ari Aster Twilight Zone way.
Yeah.
And then the final image that we get in the very beginning of the movie, they show the plot of land that the data center is inevitably built on, and what's there at first is a water tower. And then at the end of the movie, the water tower has been removed and the data center is there, which I thought was just like poetic, perfect. Once again, chef's kiss. You remove the water tower, you put the data center there for AI and whatever other technologies are going to be there. And all that happens is we just zoom out on the data center, which is a monolith now over the town. So big tech got everything it wanted, while everyone who thought that they were the main character now has to live under it. That's it. Oh, did we cut out? Are you there? Oh, did we freeze? Hold on. Odie, I can't see you. Are you there? Oh. Odie? Hey, Odie. Okay. Odie's giving me the 1 second finger.
I didn't want to interrupt your thought process, but somebody knocked on my door.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, because
anyway.
Nobody knocks on my door. I could hear you, though. Okay. Yeah, I love that that, like you said, the actual villain of the movie, who the first time, wow, I'm out of breath. The first time I watched damn it. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, it's very clearly supposed to be Joe, right? And again, because I was looking at it through the political lens. But I do like that at the end, it is the data center because, I think that they sent the goons to take out Joe because they thought Joe was against the data center. And since their candidate, Ted, who was pro data center, was murdered, I got the impression they were trying to wipe everybody out so they could get somebody in there that would make sure the data center happens. So I like that in the end, no matter what, like, you're right, the data center, big tech had their hand in everything from the start, like no matter what.
Yeah, dude, and like that to me, that just shows quality writing. That's it. Like, and the actors, like we've said this, the actors all did a phenomenal job with their roles. Like everyone, great. But this movie was masterfully executed, which shows the prowess of being a creative and original writer-director, because I don't feel like we could have gotten this story from anybody else. And I feel like it was a really bold choice to have the surrealist moment take form with a group who, if you aren't like picking up every nuance of the film, looks like they're just like Antifa. Like...
Yeah. Well, they mentioned Antifa a couple times in this. They're like, why Antifa is doing all this,
They do, and then what's interesting about, like, the correlation, or rather the line that you can draw here is, like, was Antifa ever a thing, or was it groups like this being funded by big tech to sow discord in the communities? And, like, yeah, it's just really, at the end of the day, really, really, really good movie. It borders on great for me. You said it was great.
And the reason why I think it's great, and I already kind of touched on this, but the fact that I walked away from this movie both times for different reasons, upset I think shows that this movie does, because like for somebody like me who, is a military veteran, who was on the front lines of COVID, who hates misinformation, who was raised by conspiracy theorists, I'm screaming, like, somebody just shoot this motherfucker. Like, please, like, somebody take this guy out and, like, put an end to this. Like, somebody shut the mom up. Somebody, like, knock some sense into these people. And that's why I like it, because I'm like, in a lot of ways, so Eddington's population is about 2,000 and some change. We see that at the opening. The town I grew up in, its population when I was there was 3,100. Now,
okay, so not much bigger.
I wasn't in that town for COVID, thank God. But like the small town vibe that Eddington has, like I knew the mayor. Like we saw the mayor at events. Like my dad was friends with everybody at the police department. So like there are so many elements of this as somebody who was raised in a small town, not in New Mexico, but still in like a politically divisive area, because like I got the vibe that there's some people in this town that, again, are okay with following the COVID rules because they understand, hey, this is a problem, or they just like follow in line, or they realize that this is something that they can't stop. So they're just like, well, I'm just going to deal with it until it's over, whatever you want to say. And there's other people that are, like I said before, like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to wear a mask. I'm asthmatic. I can't breathe, yada, 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 which is hilarious that he's like, I can't breathe in my mask because I'm asthmatic. And then he gets COVID and then he can't breathe. Funny. But there's just so many layers to this movie upon a second watch, and I'm really glad that the first time I watched it, I didn't like it. I'm really glad that I had all these opinions that were wrong for myself, because I think it's one of those movies that the more it marinates, the second time you watch it, the more you think about it, the more it applies to like, real world situations that happened then and now. It's just a really interesting look at what would cause any character, anybody to break under certain circumstances, no matter who they are or what kind of person they are.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you're going to go watch Midsommar after this, and I've got to say, if you're going to watch that, you're also not going to feel great at the end.
Great. Maybe I'll skip it.
Ari Aster writes a lot of movies that I would say, even if you enjoy them, like Midsommar and Hereditary lean more into actual horror. I would say that this movie, if there's a horror element to it, I would call it social horror. Like the real horror is the underbelly of the misunderstandings that the people create, and like the monster of a broken and unmending society. So there is a horror element, but like not in the way that we're used to with his films. But Midsommar has overt horror in it.
Definitely. So does Hereditary.
Oh yeah, big time. So cool. I think we both said our final thoughts on this. Was a phenomenal film. I'm really glad you brought it up. I'm really glad that I have that unlimited Regal pass now, so I can go see these things. And I'm really glad I saw it last night. Do you want to take us out, or you want me to take us out?
Go for it, baby.
All right, cool. Everybody, thank you for listening to another. What?
Sorry. What time are you seeing the Smurfs movies today?
I'm not.
Oh.
I'll skip that. I will 100% pass on that. I brought that up because Rihanna's in it. I saw a poster. That's
you don't want to go see it because of Rihanna?
That is
as
far as my thoughts go in that. I'll tell you what. When I have kids, I will go see all those movies, right? And we can talk about all of them all you want.
Do you hate your kids?
I think kids choose to see those movies, Odie. Jeez. I don't know. I'll let you know what they pick. I don't think they're gonna want to see Eddington 2.
Are you sure? Maybe they think it's Paddington 2. Anyways, all right.
Eddington Bear 2. Thank you, everybody, for listening to a bonus episode of the Unpop Podcast. Be sure to tune in next week as we talk about Fantastic Four, Marvel's first fantasy in an alternate 1960s universe. We've been over this.
It's 1960s.
It is the 1960s. You know it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns for our mental health, or would like us to podcast live at your funeral, please email mysecretpoweris@gmail.com. Art by Frank Ace. Music by moi. See you.